Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World release, and this is the first time we've had a new basic figure in a little while since the Allosaurus, which was quite a ways back. This time we have the Majungasaurus, and I'm definitely hyped for this one. Of course, I love Majungasaurus, you know, it's an absolutely incredible species, but I also just generally always really quite enjoyed the basic figures. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's just because they are so basic, so simplistic, that they're just so enjoyable to me, but we'll see how much I like this one. Occasionally, Mattel drops the ball even on the basic figures. You know, it seems kind of hard to do that, but it happens. But you can see the window area of these figures actually doesn't have any plastic. It's, you know, completely opened up, which is new. Again, most of them usually have like kind of like a little plastic window right there, whereas this time it's just opened up. As you move down, you can see again Jurassic World. You also see some Atrociraptors, and then if we turn it around on the back, you can see what figures are included in this wave. We've got the Herrerasaurus, the Pachycephalosaurus, Velociraptor Blue, and the Majungasaurus. It is insane how many times this Velociraptor Blue figure has been included in these waves. I wish at some point they would just give us an entire new wave full of new basic figures rather than one new figure and then a whole bunch of repeats like they usually seem to do, but regardless, again, it's still pretty fun to at least have a new one. I guess you don't see these figures very often. Like, they're actually kind of hard to find at times when it comes to being in store. I remember they used to always be in Kohl's, and now I don't ever even see them there anymore, which is really sad. Makes it quite complicated to get a hold of these guys. The newest place that I did see them was at Ross. I grabbed this one on eBay, actually, because it was fairly decently priced at like 15 or 16 bucks or so. And, you know, they're usually, if I were to buy it from an online retailer, it would be somewhere between $10 to $12 plus shipping, so it was basically retail, you know, including the shipping costs. So wasn't too upset about having to pay that for this figure. So let's go ahead, pop it out of the box, and check it out. So here is our basic Majungasaurus now out of its box, and honestly, I don't know what it is about these figures, but it seems like as time goes on, they get thinner and thinner. Like, if you look at it from up above, look how crazy skinny that is. It always reminds me of the guy from Beetlejuice that, again, was run over and he just kind of, like, slides into the wall. That's what these figures basically remind me of, but Jurassic World versions. But it still looks pretty cool, again, even with the super thin appearance to it. I definitely think it's a pretty neat-looking version. Oh, we're not going to like that, apparently. Neat version of a Majungasaurus, obviously. The colors are definitely going to clash with my camera. Certain colors, when it gets really close, my camera absolutely hates. So I guess we'll just take a closer look at this one from a little bit further away than we normally would. But you can see the head sculpt looks pretty decent overall. It definitely has some nice-looking skin texture, maybe a little muted in the face, but I feel like this is a really good candidate for a repaint, and I think with a repaint, you could probably bring the detail out. It's there. It's just not quite as vibrant as I'm used to, but you can see the detail does look a little better on the lower jaw. You've got like a nice cluster of larger osteoderms right there, some nice detailing there around the eye. The eye is painted with a green and a black pupil, which also looks really good. We do have the bump up there on the top of the head for the Majungasaurus, and you can see the teeth are all sculpted really quite nicely. There actually doesn't seem to be really a satin shine. A lot of the time the basic figures have a satin shine on the teeth, but this one for some reason doesn't, which is surprising. But you can see the nostrils sculpted out, and of course the dinosaur does not have an articulated jaw, so the mouth stays closed. But overall, it's a fairly decent looking head sculpt and everything as far as a Majungasaurus goes. Definitely one of the nicer looking versions that I've seen as far as the overall appearance goes. But as you lead back into the body, you start to pick up a line of ridges following along the back of the neck. They taper off and then pick back up again right around the, well, of course in the spinal column, but like up above the shoulder blade. Leading down, you do have some yellow stripes, which again is quite reminiscent to the mainline release of this figure. The skin texture continues to look pretty good. We can see some osteoderms and stuff popping up here and there, and also again just generally some nice looking texturing throughout. You've got the throat sculpted out down here. Leading down, you can see we actually have articulation in this area for the arms, which is definitely nice. Of course they go forward and back, and that's really about it, but I like that we can now put them here, you know, holding them into the body in a much more natural spot. Leading down into the hands, you can see the fingers are sculpted pretty nicely, and the nails as well. The nails do have a little bit of a satin shine to them. Obviously no nail paint, not surprising considering considering they don't even usually use that on the mainline figures, so definitely can't expect to see it on these basic figures. But the arms and everything look pretty good. As you lead up, you've got some more nice looking fine detail in the stomach region of our Majungasaurus. We continue to see those stripes leading back, but then they disappear right as we approach the hip region. You can see the ridges up there on the top of the dinosaur start to kind of taper off as well. You have some more osteoderms and stuff poking up here and there. You can see here moving down the thigh again some more. You can also see the muscle definition looks pretty good there in the thigh. You've got the knee right there. Pretty nice big bulging calf muscle. But again, all of these areas of the figures are so skinny. Like, look at from the front, those legs are ridiculously thin. It's so crazy to see how skinny looking they are. Like, it's so flat. So again, it does give the figure a bit of an awkward look. And I remember the older basic figures didn't really have that sort of a thing going on. They had kind of more reasonable leg sculpts, but obviously these newer ones are really quite thin. But as you move down, the scales look pretty good as you lead down here into like the shin area, leading into the feet. We can see we've got some nice scoots moving down the toes. You've got the nails sculpted nicely, and we can very easily see the gloss coat right there. And no gloss coat, sadly, for the dew claw. Boy, the dew claw gets gypped so badly it doesn't ever get painted, and it really gets gypped when it doesn't even get that little bit of like a gloss coat to it like they include on these figures at times. But as far as articulation in this area, again, forward and back, that's about as far back as it goes. That's about as far forward as it goes on this side. The opposing side, it can go further back. Maybe not so much further forward, but pretty much slightly limited as far as the leg articulation goes, and you can of course swivel the ankles completely around so you have that little extra bit of articulation. As you lead back up here, you can lead up into the tail, and you can see that the ridges pick back up again as you lead a little further out into the tail, and then they run out through the remainder of the tail as my camera loses focus. The scale detail and everything looks pretty decent leading out here into the tail. Not overly mind-blowing, but decent enough. You do have a little more articulation out here as you can go left and right, which you can see from up above, and you can also go up and down. There's no ability to swivel the tail. There's just no, I mean, if it was shaped better, you probably could, because it seems like it's got a little wiggle room, but considering the tail is so thin, there's just no way that was going to happen. And then, of course, when you turn it around, you're going to see pretty much the same thing, of course, from both sides. You can also see leading out the tail has a nice curve to it, which is actually kind of cool. But overall, it's, of course, not the greatest figure in the world, but it is a pretty fun version as far as a basic Majungasaurus goes. As far as a size, for a length, you are looking at right around 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters. Now the height, of course, would be dependent on how you pose it. In the position it's currently in, to the top of the neck about 5.25 inches or 13.5 centimeters, but considering it is articulated, you could make it go up a lot higher if you chose to. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our basic Majungasaurus from Mattel, and you can see it's pretty much right there in the same size range you would expect. You know, the basic figures are normally all the same size. Well, in a way, you have the 12-inch basic, which is what this one is, and then you also have it's like the 5 or 6-inch basic. We don't really see those too often, and in fact, it's been a while since we had anything new in that range, so that one may now be dead. I don't know for sure, but you can very clearly see that this one would sit right there in the same similar size range as your standard basic figures from Mattel usually do. And then I think the only other comparison we really need to do is next to the mainline version of the Majungasaurus from Mattel, and you can see that these two are pretty similar in size overall, with the mainline version just being a little bit beefier compared to the basic version. But it is pretty cool to see the two of these figures next to each other. I also like that they are slightly different as far as colors go. Like, the yellows are a little bit more brighter on the basic version, and the greens are a little bit brighter on the basic version compared to the mainline version, which kind of has a darker tone to it. But they do look super cool next to each other. Like, I could definitely say that. They look like an absolutely awesome pair of Jurassic World Majungasaurus here next to each other. Obviously, you can also see again that there is a little bit of, lesser paintwork on the basic version compared to the mainline version, but they definitely look really fun together and are roughly the same size. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory, I guess, even though it doesn't actually state Chaos Theory in the box, but basic version of the Majungasaurus is a pretty cool figure. It of course has the usual downsides that you usually see on Mattel basic figures, where it's super squished and super flat, which is definitely not a great thing. I think it of course takes away from the overall appearance of the figure, and the older ones that didn't really have that going on were so much nicer. Like the first few waves, I would say, of basics. Like if you go back and look at even the Velociraptor Blue, but if you look at like the Indoraptor or the Pachycephalosaurus, well, the Pachy was actually kind of thin, but like the Dilophosaurus, like those figures had a little bit of body mass to them, whereas these newer ones are so skinny and so weird looking because of how thin they are. But outside of that, it's a pretty decent figure. The detail looks okay through the course of the body, nowhere near as vibrant as you see on your standard mainline figures, and you could even see that when you saw the two there together. Like you could just see the detail looks a lot better on the mainline version compared to the basic version, but it still looks pretty decent as far as what we have going on, and fairly similar to what you see on the mainline version of the Majungasaurus. The paint apps are exactly as you would expect, very basic. There's not much to it, basically just a green coloration and some yellow striping in the eyes, and that's it. You don't have any paintwork for the teeth, no paintwork for the nails. You do have a gloss coat for the nails, which is nice, but not much in the way of paintwork as usual. And you do have some articulation. Of course, you don't have all that many areas. You've got 7 points of articulation for this, as you have both arms, both legs, both ankles, and the tail. No jaw articulation as per usual when it comes to these basic releases. But again, if you're a fan of the basic figures, I think you'll enjoy this one. If you don't really like the basic figures, then you're probably going to want to skip it. Either way, though, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on eBay if you would like to grab one for yourself. So make sure to check that link, go grab it if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.